You ready, Jackie?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go back into the next item, which was Midas Creek and Rose Creek Trail update. Wendy.
Okay, so your packet actually had a wrong month. I was looking forward to summer. The packet said the meeting was in May 11th, but it was actually February 11th. We had 5 residents that showed up to the meeting. They were from the Rose Creek area and had some concerns about the alignment. We worked through that with them. Jonathan Bowers from engineering was there, and our landscape architect, Heidi Sugar, who's really the project manager on this, was also there to answer questions and take their feedback. So this will be going to Planning Commission Thursday, March 7th. So hopefully it'll get recommended for approval, and we'll start moving forward with the trails.
And these are connecting pieces for a couple of different trails, correct?
Yep, Rose Creek and Midas. We will be working with some property owners to get some easements across their property for Rose Creek. But Midas Creek should be good to go. We met with DAI yesterday. My week's been crazy. Who owns, are you going to get that filled up, Ellen?
I think so.
Okay. They own the area east of Mountain View Corridor, where they're proposing the storage units in the office building. We met with them yesterday. They're going to ask you all what your preference is. My whole intention with that was just to connect the trail. There is area there to do some more recreational amenities, a trailhead or a soccer field. So really we're open to that discussion and working with them on that. So are there any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
There you go.
No, there it is. Now we're done. There you go.
All right. We will. Oh, there it is.
I just want to look at
There's Midas.
so that's the Midas. Go to the Rose Creek one
Can
then.
you open Rose Creek, Ellen?
And which one? I've got 2 Rose Creek.
Okay, this one.
And just like next slide.
I think
Let's see what that one says. Nope, the other one. Yep. Thank you.
So you had some concerns on alignment that were expressed through there?
Yes, so the developer of that neighborhood had presented homebuyers with a map that actually aligned quite closely. One was concerned about where the trail was going to intersect with that bridge, how it was going to cross. That was behind her property. There were some further down that have been accessing their backyard from the open space. And so we kind of talked through some of that. They had some questions about some pipes that are out there from the project, which I'm not aware of, out by Blade Drive. Oh. So just some very minor concerns that will be easy to work through.
But on the alignment, it's nothing major on the alignment.
Nope. Should be
Awesome.
pretty easy to work through.
The bridges that are going in there, I mean, that's all factored in as part of the cost.
The
or is
developers actually do that
developers
portion.
doing those?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
So we're excited.
Thank
It'll be
you.
great.
Appreciate it.
What's the anticipated timing?
We'll probably, so Ensign is just finishing up the design and the engineering. Then we'll have to go out to bid, and then we'll probably have to come back depending on the budgetary. We do have some budget for this, and then we also have the county money that we'll be paying for this as well. So we'll see how the bids come back, and then we'll decide how we're gonna progress forward. It will
Okay.
cover fiscal years. So
Okay.
it'll be probably the end of this fiscal year into next fiscal year.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to city manager update.
Okay, we did talk about the award thing. I just want to say again, thanks for all the council attending that. That's a big deal, and it actually means more for our employees than I always think. But they're greatly appreciated. It's more of a family night, and that's kind of what our culture is all about.
What was your feedback on your question?
That's next week. I've already heard one comment by not a manager, but how they just got engaged and how you have to go through each one of those steps of a relationship. So
It was a good question because we had that conversation on the car on the way home.
it'll be entertaining next Tuesday. The councilman is referencing a challenge the director manager group to go to the movie with management plus the right? So Troy already got his own list, right? I thought you were dragging.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were dragging.
Listen, We've had a few dragons
It's
by
all
the
about
tail
the
this
family.
week. Dragons by the tail.
I get past that, since the chief has chimed in, and before he gets distracted again, I guess a little bit of update, we've had some activity, I will say this, as your city manager and the public city manager in this community, we could have done better than we have. Stand up our public safety police force and having the spotlight of council to do it right and hire well. And we didn't cheat this down, we hired seasoned people. And we've had a lot of things happen in our short time period.
Yeah, really.
And, with that, he'll give you an update on what happened out there. But I just can't, we're proud parents of what's happened. And knowing that, I go home. I don't worry about how it's being handled. We had plenty of coverage. We handled the whole situation yesterday in-house. And had expertise to handle it all in-house. And that's rewarding, but it didn't happen by chance. If we didn't have the support of our council, that just doesn't happen. I've seen our city start their police forces and they didn't hire experience, they didn't hire and buy equipment to take care of the residents, and they dropped the ball a few times. So, that's a segue into you, chief, as you.
Well, you can do it right or you can do it cheap. And thankfully we did it right, because yesterday as we stood there thinking, oh boy, look at this happen. And Sergeant Adamson pulls up and he brings in his detective team, and Cody pulls up and handles the media, and forensics pulls up and gets their pharaohs and booties and everything out, and they get ready to do it. We write a search warrant very quickly, and we're inside the house, just that quick. However,
You say search warrant, that has to get approved by the DA and get all approved and cleared, if you
Yeah.
don't know that. So, right,
but it
so here
doesn't,
you go.
it just doesn't get done quickly or adequately if you don't have the right people writing it. And thankfully, we have all this experience sitting right here in this house. So yesterday, we received a phone 911 call of two people that had been shot. It turned out to be inaccurate, and they had been stabbed. And we know that the event as it occurred was between the two people. It was a domestic situation inside the home, so we only had one crime scene, thankfully. And that event that took place, and I'm not trying to be cryptic, but there's some information that we can't release just yet. That event that took place resulted in both of the people being stabbed by the other person. My PIO is sitting over there shaking his head, yes. And when we talk about chiefs, when they know too much, they say too much, right? So, because we don't understand. So, at any rate, what happened with the officers responding was quite amazing. They had to actually breach the door to go in and rescue the two people that are both, I guess, victims or suspects, maybe. I don't know. It was a terrible scene. It's an awful environment that was created and took us to that moment last night. And at any rate, we had to fly both of them out. One of them's in critical and still, I believe, on a ventilator. And Councilman Smith we were talking about that earlier. It seems like that when you have those types of injuries, especially the multitude of injuries that they had, their condition, although critical and stable, can change very quickly with sepsis and many other things that happen. So there was several people not in the home but lived there, and so we spent some of the evening dealing with those folks as they came home. Animals in the home, just all of these things that create a bigger issue than you would think when you start out. By about 10 o'clock, we were done with the scene, and that was just inside the house. That's how long it took. So I don't think there was an area inside the house that was unaffected by what we had to document. So you can see how long that takes to do that. But again, I had zero concerns. They kept me outside probably for my own safety. As they did their crime scene in there, it went flawless, really. Everything was documented well. And I mean, we're hoping the best for both of them, and we'll see what comes. But I believe we had a meeting with the DA today. We did, and so hopefully within the next couple of days that will become public, and we can tell you a little bit more about what went on. again, not to be cryptic, but there's some of the stuff we have to keep,
Yeah.
for the time being and for the investigation, because we have yet to speak to one of the persons that has significant injuries. And hopefully that will come soon.
And there'll be more comment about that because the quick reaction expertise, probably saved someone's lives.
Yeah, and I think the key point there is having more resources in our city, because our
Yeah.
police force is larger. You know, we went from the older model of 19 in precinct to 35. And so we were able to get detectives there very quickly. Our responding officers were there within minutes. And thankfully so, because it was, for one of the persons inside, it was ending very quickly. And those officers, I can't tell you the experience we bought to know exactly how to handle that and get inside and get the fire department up there to render aid. Just not enough words. What we've done is an amazing thing.
Keep it up.
For sure. So any other questions on it that I can dance around for you? Cody? Cody?
You dance, partner.
Big Hook is coming to.
I think we all recognize that probably prevented some of the police officers from attending.
Sadly.
And so we just wanna make sure, I'm sure as a council, we wanna make sure that we continue to make sure that they get recognized and taken care of as well.
Yeah,
So.
those things happen at the most inopportune
Our
time.
great HR department is already on top of that, make sure they get some of that you all got last night.
I will gladly send my kids to the movie with them.
For the experience.
It's on me, it's on me.
Experience.
Also, the same night,
Free.
we had the youth academy scheduled, so we had officers handling that too. So you think about your police force in one night, giving back to the community as phenomenal service, but also teaching your youth, 35, 36 students now, or is it
When
higher?
you're, we got 30-ish, I think.
32. Attending this youth academy, which is a great experience for them, is the first of its kind. It'll probably be a STEM program that'll spread through the police Utah and further outside that. So we have a lot of resources last night, one night. I know we're putting a lot of emphasis on the police, but you know what? We also had to a lot of public scrutiny about why we stood up a police force, and it's just rewarding. We did it right, we did the right thing, and we'll stay on it and always do the right thing.
Well, I think there's even a bigger story to tell, if I might, for just a minute, and that was all of the city departments. So when this happens, I send out what's called a WIPI, a working police incident, and it goes to the city manager, assistant city manager, finance, and parks and events, and people go, why would you send it out to that bigger group? Because that incident can become very burdensome very quick. And what I like them to all know what's happening. So if I have to call Monty and Justin for resources with barricades and those kind of things, or food, happens like that, or money, Alan. You don't know how long these events are going to take. So this city is just amazing, absolutely amazing. Haven't been exposed to anything like it ever.
So basically, the 1st of October until now, we're seeing some things we haven't seen probably in 10, 15 years, oddly enough. It is, has to be really good feel good for the residents. I'm a resident, and I feel really good about what's going on, so.
It's like watching every once in a while, seeing a truck go past my house. It's like, wow.
Did you see the number of trucks that were there yesterday? We landed 2 helicopters, kept the scene contained. I think we had 7 of the patrol officers on scene, and we were still out managing the patrol calls.
I know that there was
So.
2 vehicles on my street when I came home, and you guys were up here, and I
Was it?
was out there. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is
So
good.
we're able to handle business just fine.
Had a Magna resident today, I was with him out there at the cemetery, he said, by the way, I support what you've done studying on police force. He said, Magna, we're not seeing officers around very much. So interesting enough.
So I don't want to suggest how it might have happened otherwise, but it certainly happened with a fantastic outcome yesterday.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay.
So, again, I want to emphasize, the council listened to what we had to say over the last almost year now about money. And, I know there was a lot of public, outcry about, did we cheap it down, did we hire experience, all that, veteran people. We did not cheap it down, we hired, paid for experience and ability to handle situations, so.
And just
That's
get
more of
the
a
same
public
amount of
information.
money. That was
Mhm.
incredible
Yeah,
thing.
it doesn't come cheap, but we're doing it within the confines of what we said we would. We didn't say we was gonna save money, we said we were gonna spend every penny of that, what we're collecting, in public safety. I want Justin to talk a minute. Lonnie left apparently, but heard from several of you, and I actually had residents call me. I called them back and left a lengthy message. I gave the opportunity for them to come and see me, and this is about chip seal this last year. Boy, let's just say we get low bid, right? And to the residents need to know, that's why I want to have a little public comment, because they'll view this the next few days. They're not probably staying up tonight, but in reality, the council needs to be updated on where we're at with that. We were on top of it, and seeing the issue fail us real quickly, and we took measures in place that we were displeased with the workmanship. And this is in 5 areas within the city. It's the same contractor, never used it before.
Can we say who the contractor is?
I will not, because we don't know where that's going yet.
Yeah, okay.
But the biggest concern is right now during the winter months, and because the chip seal's pulling off so quickly, there's a lot of gravel still on the road, the chips, and they're sharp. That's why by design. But with snowblades hitting them because it's such a bad tack down, it's coming off.
In sheets.
Yeah,
All over. We have a kind of a plan what we're gonna do with that. I'll let Justin speak to that, what they're planning to do. Also, the resident I spoke with, or he mentioned this, playing phone tag, was concerned about the striping on the road. He's right. The problem is when it's hard to get striping down and how we make our lanes, that we have divided lanes safe. I think Justin has an idea how he's gonna approach that through the public works side. And for me, we'll get right on that right away. And we are concerned about it. It's not, I know residents sometimes they don't think we see the problems, but we do, from the very second it was happening. I guess what we didn't anticipate is the striping going so quick too. I laughed and snickered and I thought, ooh, okay, cause it's real, and I know that, go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, no, I should finish your thought.
Oh, I can't do that when you do that.
I was gonna stop, I just was putting myself in the queue. Go and finish your thought.
So, we wanted to figure out what we had to do, even if it stays wet and a little bit snowy, we gotta figure out something we can get the lanes safe, and so that the markings on the road are recognizable where they can be somewhat safe to stay in their lane. Does that make sense? And we're working through that.
Okay, so very important immediate issue. Totally agree, whatever the solution and the fix is. But I've gotten hot on this issue before, and I will no doubt get a little hot on it again, because it frustrates me, because this is not the first or even the second or even the third or even the fourth time that I can think of that we have had road conditions where we got the low bid, or we got the bid by a contractor that some of us were concerned about even from the get-go, but we were compelled by law
What the state allows us to do.
to take the low bid. And then what happens is we get out of warranty with a subpar project, and we're spending 2 or 3 times what we should have spent because of subpar work.
You're going back to some really old issues now.
I am, because again, it's the same
I'm
issue.
getting really warm because I agree with you.
But it's
frustrating.
it's fundamentally the same issue. It always is. It's having to feel as if you have to take the low bid, even when you have compelling evidence that particular contractor is either unable to do the work or has proven subpar work. I would really like it if we would develop policy that has some teeth in it, because subpar, particularly from a growing city, subpar infrastructure
You are
is-
passionate about this.
is killing us. And I remember talking about this 3 years ago, and I remember the projects from when I worked at the city, and we had to redo them because the boxes collapsed within however long. Yeah, a couple of months. Unacceptable. So I am hot about it because it feels like a waste of taxpayer dollars. So I look to whomever to say, there has got to be a way, because there are outs in that law when you know you have a contractor that has consistently done poor work, whether it's for our city or another, that allow you to get out of that. I would rather spend more upfront, absolutely, than I would have to revisit these projects 2 and 3 times.
We don't disagree with anything you said and support what you're saying. It's been frustrating to us, to our team, about what we have to follow on state statute. If they're bondable and you can't define that they can't bond or they can't back up and they're not a bad company, they get the bid. And trust me, I'm probably more frustrated than anybody in the room about that, cause I expect quality job done.
I just want to see where we can stretch that law and be bold in the fact, stretch within the law and be bold with the fact, or be brazen, to the point where we say, we know that this particular contractor does not perform the quality of work with which we want in our city, and whatever that proof is, and at least be willing to go out on a limb within the limits of the law that protect the taxpayer dollars.
And
It's
absolutely to your
ridiculous.
point, saying those things, we get frustrated with not protecting tax dollars, we have to go and.
Yeah, and I'm not putting blame on you, I
And
know you've got a
contractors
box that you have to
actually
stay
just
in.
missed the bid by a little bit, and we know they're a better contractor, they're better capable of work.
There was a contractor about 8 months ago, we canceled their contract and went to the next little higher bid. Well,
It's good.
that was, Jonathan was working with us on
Just
We,
don't disclose.
we go through the
Yeah,
bids really detailed, and we have specifications, standards they have to meet,
that.
certain
Who was that
requirements.
group we kicked out? There was,
I can't remember, but we go through them
we'll give
pretty
you a
close,
list,
and
maybe
they
I'll
were
show
missing
you.
one thing, and we noticed it in the bid, we were able to throw them out.
But
So-
we had some concerns about them,
Yeah, so don't take this as a criticism to the city, because I know what you're bound by, and I know that John,
We
were
gotta
he
find ways
here,
to-
John, were he here, would probably rein in a little bit on the limits of the law. All I'm saying is, if there is a way to look at this from a policy standpoint, please, let's do, because I feel like this situation arises, and now that we've got this heavy growth in the state, you're going to have companies come out of the woodwork that have neither the skill nor the expertise to do the job, nor do they care once they're done. So they will put in shoddy work knowing that it just has to last within a very limited warranty period. They're off to do another shoddy job, and we then pay double the cost. So there's gotta be protections in place with this fervor of construction that we have coming in, and the fact that it brings all kinds out of the woodwork who think they are all of a sudden qualified to do work that they are not.
There's one thing we talked about this morning I just want to bring up in regard to this, was our new drone that we have, has infrared capability. We talked, Justin went to an asphalt conference this week, and they were talking about using drone technology to watch when the asphalt's placed, to identify cold patches, so you can watch those spots and put an extended warranty on those places, so.
I love that.
There's some things like that we can do. We talked this morning in the engineering department about implementing that as a standard, so that if you pave in a certain temperature, it has to have that analysis done.
I love that, and what I like is that the articulation of even just that as an increased standard, but also just a policy that just says, we are using these techniques to ensure that the quality that we paid for is in fact the quality that we get. And if that is the statement, if nothing else, when you have these other subpar contractors that are bidding, at least they're aware that we are ever watchful on the quality of it. And I love the idea of using
It
drones.
has been pretty embarrassing this year, but Justin, would you like to talk about what we're trying to do?
Yeah, that's great.
So this problem we gotta fix now.
So to touch on Nicole's concern a little bit, we are working with John to tighten up our contracts to try and be able to do some of those things you're talking about. And then also, we've talked about with Blake, putting together a, somewhat of a numbering system so we can grade each contractor that works in the city after the project and see where they fit in there. And then we might be able to throw some bids out in the future based on their score on projects they've done with the city.
That's
So
what I'm talking about,
we're
that's
working on that,
fantastic.
we're as frustrated as anybody.
Yeah, that's good,
But
thank
to
you.
the chip seal project, yes, we had a non-successful project. And we are working with the contractor to try and come up in the confines of our contract on what we can do to make them fix the problem. And we have some good solutions. We just can't do anything because of temperatures. It's gonna be April, May at the soonest before we can get a lot of the repairs made. But as far as striping goes, we have discussed several different things of painting really doesn't work in this condition. And then also, you know, there's vinyl lane delineations you can put down, vinyl striping. During snowplow season, it's not very conducive because they just peel right up. So we're looking at different options. But now we're getting to where snowplows aren't out as often, so we might be able to do some vinyl stickers for lane delineation until we can get the problem solved.
Stop bars and stuff.
So those are some of the things we're looking at to be able to mitigate the problem. But now that we're coming out of snowplow season, it's better, so, we'll be able to do those things.
But
Is if we don't have enough issue with, things to communicate, I think it would be good to,
We'll talk to Tammy about it, but
I think it would be good to, again, communicate that out in some manner, cause I have received a few phone calls,
I think
from
we have done
residents.
something on it already. back
Yeah,
when
we've
we
done several things,
Yeah.
put together
But
a number of things.
What I wanna do is I want, as you said, Brett, I want the residents to recognize that we are aware of the issues, that we are working on making corrections there, but there are constraints that we have to deal with, and primarily right now, the time of year that it is. But that we're well aware of those, and that we're not going to, I guess, let the fact that we had a shoddy job on a project just go unchecked.
To go along with that, our residents are our highest priority. I said this to a resident last week in planning commission, I said to her, our number one job is to review your service. We may not like what we have to tell you or help you through understand the steps you need to take, but we need to take care of you the information or the service you desire as a resident. Doesn't matter our opinion, right? It may be going against the city, but we still hold them to give them the right information, the correct information.
Agreed.
So we always welcome residents, to give you matter and heck at us, come on in. We'll be glad to sit down with you no matter what the issue is. So, moving on next, thanks for your pointed and, let's say your flavor and heatedness about your love and care about this community. That's always important to us. And, when this started happening, trust me, our key leaders in our family here were very upset about that this has happened, so. Anyway, we'll have the street sweeper out a lot, trying to pick up chips as much as we can, when we can, and then we got some other things we're working on as well, so.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll follow up with you on some updates with that contractor. Tammy walked out and Jared's not here. So I wanted to talk
Great, moving
about
Motion to
Southwest
adjourn.
Caucus, Jared, if you're listening. Southwest Caucus was formed by the mayors, particularly West Jordan, South Jordan, Harriman, Riverton, Bluffdale, focusing on the population growth out this way and also our needs for infrastructure. And I will say this, the group is coming together well. They're working towards a single point of focus, drawing attention of the needs out in this area for infrastructure is our key piece of that, and particularly number one is transportation. But you're gonna see some more information pushed out to the public of who they are and why this was formed. And it was said in our caucus meeting on Monday morning, that starts at 7 o'clock on Monday mornings at the Capitol, meeting with key legislators, and one said, doing the very thing that matters most, a combined effort has a bigger voice. And so by all those things I mentioned, have a very big combined voice when you think about the population in Salt Lake County Valley. So your residents need to know that. We'll push that out as well. There's gonna be came from Tammy and Jared and come with it, meaning how we're gonna start communicating that out to the public more, who the group is, each city, and why we're together, what we're together on, working in a collaborative effort to put more emphasis at the Capitol and the county as well. Okay? Hope I did that justice for those who might be listening. Wasn't my topic, but anyway. Another thing that's come up is we've had interest of, kind of see if you can get some nod or where you all at. We have our Trails Committee, but there's also been interest of a OHV committee being formed. And we have a lot of committees, and we have a Trails Committee, and their focus might be in one area. That's what the OHV people feel like. It's not focused on what their needs are. And so I'm really kind of looking at some direction from you, without causing a lot of attention to, because I want to hear what my 5 bosses want me to do.
I want Wendy's 2 cents first.
Well, can I just, clarifying question, can we not have those that are passionate about OHV to be on the Trails Committee? I don't understand the need for a separate committee.
They can, but they do have different wants and needs and uses. And they seem
Well,
to
but
be-
that's my point, all the more reason that they all get around the same table. I mean, I think the worst thing that can happen is to have a group that wants motorized vehicles on the same trails having a different conversation than those that do not want motorized vehicles on the trails, having an entirely different conversation and assuming that those two are ever going to mesh. I would put them all at the same table because it's uses of trails.
And you understand there's staff that usually attends a lot of these site committee meetings at night, and it eats up many weeks of their
All the more
weeknights.
reason to have
I
one
know,
meeting
I
rather
just-
than two.
I'm not, I just wanting to, I hear your voice, I've heard some direction from Jared prior to the meeting, cause I knew he was maybe not able to attend the whole meeting. So I'm looking for,
Well, I think,
kinda get a little straw.
I don't disagree with the point that you made, Nicole, at all. I mean, the last thing we wanna do is continue to overburden staff and the time that takes place there. For me, realizing that they are coming from different places, the main thing I guess for me at this point I wanna know is OHV Trails feasible, first and foremost, before I guess we go down the road of really investing them in a committee or the Trails Committee, whatever it is. Are they really feasible, and if so, where? Cause that may help drive some of the direction of then what that committee needs to look like. Does that make sense? Cause if they are feasible, but it is outside really what the planning of the trails, the trail systems that we have in place now, then maybe it doesn't make sense to have them on the Trails Committee. I don't know the answer to that. What I'm just saying is, we need to figure out a way to get some more information back of the feasibility of an OHV trail system within the city. And honestly, Wendy, I don't know the best way to go about facilitating that, other than I think that that's one of the first steps that needs to take place.
Gordon and some other staff and I met with one of the passionate OHV residents, sometime this week. Like I said, my week's been crazy. And that was one of the first steps that we had mentioned to him in taking, was going to get a feasibility study. And then also including it as part of the Parks Master Plan if it is feasible to do that.
Right.
I don't know what that kind of study would cost. My guess was $20,000-$30,000. I don't know. We'll have to price it out and see what that means, and how much that's gonna cost.
Hasn't some of those people from that side basically, seems like I've heard that they have possibly some money or ways to help get money to help fund that type of thing?
There are some grants available. They have mentioned that they have some other funding streams. I don't know what those are. We haven't delved into that as much at this point. We're still just trying to figure out the access. I get it from a lot of sides.
Mm-hmm.
I hear from people that email me and say, no way, you're not putting this in my neighborhood. And then I get them that are really passionate about it and want to have that access. So it's gonna be a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Either way, it's
Yeah,
going to
absolutely.
be
How much of this
difficult.
was a specific individual, or is this a push by a larger group? Is this just one person saying we should have a separate committee, or is this we have a
There's
bunch of people who
there's a
wanna be
handful
on a different
that I'm
committee?
aware of. There could be more, and the only reason that I'm aware of them is from social media posts. I've had one person that has approached me and that I've been working with and trying to find a solution.
So a larger question I would have to that is not how many residents are asking for that, but what's the need in Salt Lake County and Utah County for a facility like that would draw people in? My sense is they're, particularly if you look at what St. George did with their bike park, whatever they're calling it. So if there was some way to structure a destination type of course, for instance, that's not being serviced elsewhere, that's even perhaps of more interest to me than what immediate residents are asking for it, because I think it meets our overall goals of bringing people into the city.
Yeah. And I think there is a need there, but it goes back to, we're gonna have these.
Balancing of, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right, I think that too, that being said, there has to be a balance, right, we can't just say, and we have committed in this room to OHV people that we intend to do OHV trails in the city. And so I hate to see us go back on that and just say there's no place for them, cause I think there
Right.
is a place, and I think it would be not, a good balance to buy up a whole bunch of a mountainside and say it only can service one type of recreation. We have to find a balance to allow other types of recreation, and I think they're so drastically different that I think it would warrant a different committee to say, I don't, it's not even apples and oranges, it's more like broccoli and apples, because it's a whole different food group, in my opinion, between, you know, the OHV and then people who are biking or walking. So I think that it's tough for them to sit in the same room, and because they're just come from such
It is.
different angles and their needs. I mean, you need the miles that you're gonna need of OHV is gonna be different than somebody who is using it for a walking or running trail. So,
And
And
it
I-
would be wider and it'd be.
yeah, and there might have to be more restrictions or things like that on them, right?
Sound dust.
Yeah, so I just think that they're just so different that it's tough to throw them in the same committee, because they're just really different elements.
It is very challenging,
So
very different.
for the specific, the immediate question about of having a
I just
committee, my opinion right now is, I'd like to see them continue with the Trails Committee as is. I don't think we're quite ready to form an entire new committee for off-road vehicles. I'm open to it in the future, but right now, I'd like those voices to be doing exactly what Nicole was saying, being at the same table, talking to each other, and trying to find out how to coexist in the space that we have available for them. And if we have them separate, I just don't think that's gonna happen.
But we're not allowing them to coexist, we're saying one can exist and one cannot exist. There's no coexisting going on.
No,
Right.
And they can attend, there's no problem with them not attending, but,
They
No, I mean, as far
They
as the
could
trails
have
use.
applied, I thought you were talking about.
No, I mean, they can sit and listen to the Trails Committee, but it doesn't serve their purpose at all,
Right.
that's all I'm saying, because there's no,
that they are.
There's
there's nothing that's
but
addressing anything that they're
the
interested in.
power in one committee, they actually can find out where they're gonna conflict, where they may cross.
Mhm.
Those are gonna be interesting, but maybe it is more interesting to have two groups, and then on issues that are gonna conflict with one another, our staff member that has to attend, can say, okay, it's time to get together and vet out this issue and work through it.
They do a city council and a planning commission, and every month, they get together and they
Because
have a
again,
meeting
we are
together.
put on, and
It's a
we're
lot of strain.
fine with it. I wish some staff wasn't going to all the meetings because they don't have a life, after the 5 o'clock hour.
For sure.
They don't know what it is to go home.
It was only everybody was looking at you when you said it. That was really what
My
made it hard.
opinion is right now is I think we have to find a way to continue to at least investigate that.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not convinced at this point that there's gonna be a lot accomplished inserting them into the Trails Committee. There's nothing there that services their need right now. And that's where that group's gonna be focused on, because there is things that service those needs, there is continued development, there is a master plan that they're continuing to plan for and implement and get funding for. And that's all they're gonna be focused on, and they're not gonna be focused on the needs of those individuals, and I think that there's not gonna be productivity if you go and put them on the same committee at this point. I think that, again, we have to really investigate, the where is it possible, and I don't know that takes a
Feasibility.
whole committee at this point
Yeah.
to
We already have a pretty good idea of that.
to come up with that, but again, in my opinion, we're a long ways away from needing a OHV committee.
Yeah, for sure. I understand.
To do that, because there's a lot of other things that need to happen first.
Any bigger parking lots, any bigger access, it's
Absolutely.
a bigger.
But to Sherry's point, we have kind of always said, look, we've got a lot of open space that we're preserving out there, and we wanna provide amenities for everyone.
Mhm.
And so, like you say, I think we need to keep moving in that direction. I know that doesn't give you a ton of direction right now to say how we're gonna deal with it today, but again, for me, I'm not convinced that putting them on the same committee is gonna move us in a positive direction on that issue.
I agree, and I felt their frustration from both sides in trying to work together, which it's not,
a happy place
It's
for
broccoli
anything.
and apples.
I know, it just doesn't find
It fits well. And I've been working really well with the one resident who's come to me and has brought some ideas and asked questions and has been involved. And I'm happy to keep having those discussions with him and whomever else he wants to bring to the discussion. I did tell him, you know, I have to come to council and ask for money for the study and see who would even do such a study. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody out there that does them. And see where we go from there.
I think honestly we need to engage them, those people that are interested and have a passion for it. We need to put a lot of the burden on them to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
They need to come up with a plan.
Because that's
You
what
know,
our Trails Committee does.
exactly. What type of study is out there for us? What is the potential cost of that? What are some funding mechanisms? That's all the information we need before we can make a decision on what direction we want to go.
And they're frustrated because they want access now. They want it now.
Right.
And I keep telling him, this is gonna take time.
Fine.
This is
Our
not
tra-
gonna happen.
Our trails that exist now did not happen overnight. Those have
Right.
been years
Yes.
in the making.
And it's been that Trails
Years
Committee
in the
that's
making.
made it happen.
Absolutely.
And so I'm working with it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good direction though, I think, just start the conversation, start gathering all the facts and coming up with a plan before there's, a committee would be useless if there's nothing to study.
And I'm happy to continue talking, being with it.
Okay, do you have the direction you need?
I do. Brett, you good?
Yep, I'm good. Okay, so we don't have any viewers, by the way, so. let's hope that they have any. Okay,
Thank you to the 7 that are still here.
well, 7.
Oh, we have 6.
Spouses, no doubt.
I'm barely hanging on.
My spouse already left, I'm sure.
We have
That's not one of
several
the
things
six.
I need Michael to cover. By the way, I'm gonna remind you and the public that these items come up after we post the agenda, that we feel we wanna get you, have some conversation with you, so we get some direction a little bit, get a nod to what we should be doing. But, Michael, apparently he's hot item. Planning commission processes he wants to talk about?
Is this on the,
Getting new plans commissioners.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, as of yesterday, Monday, I think we have received about 18 applicants. Tomorrow's our last day for receiving applicants.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
We're going to be looking, where they are located within the city. We want to try and encourage, representation throughout the city as much as we can. If the council would allow me to do so, I would like to maybe just complete an initial screening. I may even request a face-to-face meeting on all those applicants, but go through an initial screening, present at least, just because that's so many people to try and invite you to meet with, and then maybe bring that list to you and then allow you to give me further direction on how you want to proceed. I'm assuming, like last time, that at least some of the council would like to participate in some face-to-face interviews. So,
Absolutely.
okay,
That
that was the main
I
thing. I
love
just wanted to see
hearing
if
that
you
we
were
have that
okay.
many
That's fantastic.
residents that have
Yeah.
expressed interest in that, because that's huge. That's awesome.
We also are hoping, we need to identify a CDBG liaison with the county, and we're thinking that we might even find someone out of this group who might fit that, requirement as well, so.
Say that again, the what?
There's a CDBG, kind of review committee with the county, that we should have a resident, not an employee or staff of the city, participate in. We had someone, but they had to step back and retire from that position, so we need to refill that spot. Awesome.
Okay, you wanna talk about, planned community zone?
Salt Lake County and South Jordan's, and then maybe even other communities, have a pretty aggressive zoning tool that's called planned community zone. It's very much like our plan development requirement, but it's much more detailed. And it has multiple layers of review. So essentially, there's an initial approval that is given, but then there are multiple steps that still need to receive legislative buy-off. Unlike right now, we're doing these development agreements, and you basically get it all at once, and you're done. By having these multiple review layers and opportunities for the council to say yes or no, you get to see deeper the details of the proposed development. It's a model that seems to work well for other cities, and we would like to study it and see if it would work well for us. It would be a whole new zoning tool though, that we don't currently have, really.
Yes.
I see a lot of nods here. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll move forward on that, and I'm familiar with some, in fact, I think I shared with you some of the ones I've received. So you start getting familiar with that might be a good idea. You know, Michael get to his finish line and resolve to get some direction.
Why wouldn't you do it?
The plan community, it will require more work, I think more staff review, but I think it's good. It'll require more work up front,
Yes,
so,
but then the lines are clearer and
Yeah.
then you get that deeper review.
yeah.
Well, and to that point, one of the discussions that we've had here is on the development agreement side of things and the frustration that exists there, and if there's another tool to help
It would help.
Yeah.
bridge that gap, then
Yeah.
absolutely.
And this has nobody's name on it, but just letting the council know, I actually think Kenneth was Jordan School District survey to name the new elementary down by the high school.
Yeah, I keep
Get
pushing
on
that out
the
the other
survey
day.
and chime in on that. I put some nominations already, Hard Lake Elementary.
Yep. Hard Lake.
Worse.
Keep
Or
trying.
follow.
Ever going to happen.
You don't have one though, okay.
Don't like you one more time.
Please stop trying to make that a thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna have fun at the trails, so just leave it at the trail.
Just leave
How
it.
about
What happens at the trail
Stays
stays
at
at
the
the
trail.
trail.
Not in an elementary.
Yeah. Catfish pond. But Michael is really wanting to talk about smoke shops.
So, prior to my, time with you all, we adopted, regulations on stores that sell tobacco products primarily. But the language of that restriction is specifically tobacco,
Not.
and vape shops are not strictly a tobacco product, of course, so we need a direction from the council if you want us to revisit that issue and broaden that limitation, that prohibition.
Yes.
Just so you know, we're seeing a lot of kids in our junior highs and high school using vape, big time.
Recently, and I can't remember who, but another organization recently changed their language because of exactly what you talked about.
Correct, I can't remember who was the other, but.
I know I saw it recently, but there is an organization out there that
Maybe
recently
Michael's
changed.
organization, planning organization.
Yeah,
can
there
figure
was-
that out.
And I think, given our young demographic, I think that's appropriate that we really look at this carefully.
Well, they've reinvented a way to make it seem like it's not harmful.
Right.
And there has been from what I've seen, a huge uptick in the number of young adults that are vaping. It's concerning.
Prevalent in our schools.
Okay, I think Michael's done.
Thank you.
Are you?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all I knew about.
You're popular but fast.
Closes up.
We should have Michael.
The one thing I wanted to
do
say
a
is
recording
really good news, and I want Alan, doesn't know I'm talking, ask him to speak, but he always gives us our quarterly report on sales tax revenue. I wanted him to go a little bit broader for just memory. He's gonna show up hip from this, because he knows the numbers, right? We're having a successful quarter, and in the new year, we're having a successful quarter over last year's quarter at this time. So, good news, but I'd like him to have a thought and give an input that this is, I'm just asking widely, because it's gonna be raw, which is good, straightforward, which he is, black and white. Where do you think, why the change are happening, and why we consistently see positive growth in this area? Go ahead.
Well, we got our February sales tax, which was $508,000. This is the largest we've ever had. Our previous high was $461,000, which was last February. February is our December month distribution. They distribute 2 months behind, so this is the Christmas time, but we got $508,000 this year. That's up 10% over last February, but it's also, we're up 15% for the year to date. And we continue to grow now. It's interesting to watch because our local sales tax and our population base stay pretty much the same percentage as we see it grow. We're right at 20% on local and 80% from the population base, and as it goes up, those proportions seem to stay pretty close. We have very little.
Can you speak to what population base are they using?
Well, they're using 2-year-old population base. It's 36,370, I believe.
People say, hey, we're growing, but it doesn't immediately update. It takes years for it to get updated.
Well, because we don't have a census, they use the estimates that are done by the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And if you watch them, they're actually about two years behind what we believe they are.
So the census,
We're
which
getting
we're
ripped off, is what you're saying.
preparing for, we got Michael and Jacqueline all over that, make sure we do everything we can to make sure that. And it'll be Tammy too, pushing out public, so it's gonna be done online this go around. And communication, everything, getting that word out, get on, up there, because it means money coming back to our community. So,
I say almost
$1,000
$1,000
everything else, but
It's how much? Like it's a
It's
six.
interesting to see at the legislature if they try to mess with that distribution model this year.
as we're starting to get a better benefit, if they mess with what they've been saying, it's gonna really hit the cities along, I think,
Yes.
benefit your smaller communities, actually.
Yeah, it's very beneficial to us to, and, no offense to what Gordon's doing, but that becomes less important to us if they change the
Yeah.
distribution.
Well, they keep
That's not true,
saying, they
Gordon.
keep saying, Senator Fillmore was saying that it won't really impact cities, period. It'll just change.
They keep saying that, but they're not confident.
What? You're not confident?
Yeah, they even said that this last.
The latest numbers I heard is that, like Salt Lake City would take around a $6 million hit on that, and ones along along I-15, especially those with the larger tax
There'll be
base,
winners and losers.
are like $1.5 million
Though,
I
the
went to
last
Buffalo,
time
they
they
said
changed
no
the
winners, no
distribution, the smaller cities all lost.
Yep.
Except there's a feature in the bill that says no one can go backwards. So in
Yeah.
June, every year, we get hit with a chunk of money to go to those cities that got hurt by it. So they make it up at the end of the year right now, so that no one's backwards to what they were before. Every year we get hit with that when it comes to June.
And I'll say this, Gordon and Heather can't back off by hearing this information, because
Absolutely.
we've
Sorry,
been tasked,
Heather, you
that
can't have a lie.
the council has tasked us with,
Absolutely.
look for job creation, bring some benefits to our community that, services that provide to our residents. Do grow our tax base, sales tax base, but if that goes away, we still grow it by population. And it's being shopped here locally, you don't have to travel far, so
I
it has
said
an
it
air quality
less
thing.
important.
But
Yeah,
also,
people
you told
still
us
wanna
to reduce housing.
shop local.
Yeah,
This is our,
And they
our
still wanna
proponent
eat
trying
at
to
a
reduce
restaurant,
housing.
aka we don't have one.
yeah, it's
Get off the hook, there you go.
39,224 is what they're currently doing, but,
Who's that?
that's the population they use, 39,224. But if
you
you look at the statewide sales over the last, I don't know, you go back 7 or 8 years, it grows almost consistently. They're showing that there was $63 million worth of sales in Utah last month. Well, that would be the December month. We're in the high 40 million to 60 million every month in what total sales are for the state.
So my last item, unless someone has a question for me from council particularly, is the hill's been busy. I've seen several of you up on the hill different times, our council. And been a lot of work going on up there. I wanna thank you for attending and being up there. A lot of bills this year, 1,300 plus, something like that. A lot do affect us. I mean, we're watching here from code enforcement, water rates, secondary water metering, sales tax, distribution, 129, ring a bell? Oh, yeah. 119, 288. I know some people know it was an unravels off, but, we're watching a lot, we're trying to stay on top of them all. and this where that Southwest Caucus is actually doing some really good work collectively, I'll tell you that, along with Utah Lake-St. Towns.
We are now in the last 2 weeks of the session, and this is when,
Oh, boy.
it really gets going.
Yeah, just find out if we do our conditioning well, so we can get across the line. It's gonna be really hard, so. You got any comment, Clint, or anybody's been
It's,
fun?
I think it,
hold on.
hold on. I think it's crazy when you say that many number of bills, because I listened to a legislature the other day, and I shared this a little while ago, talk about, he's a freshman legislator, and he said, you know, you go there and they expect you to be an expert on everything, and you haven't even seen any of it until you sit down and they're ready to vote on it, and all of a sudden they're presenting this thing to you, and you're like, wow, who's voting for it? I guess I should vote on it because they're voting for it. And I just think that's crazy that that's the way we're passing bills. I think that maybe we should have a little less than 1,300 or a little more time to really understand what you're voting on, because you should understand it and not just be looking at who's suggesting.
They're getting fed by the truckload of paperwork to read
Yeah.
and digest, so.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me.
Before we end with my items, we had on here for closer for property and.
Tom's not here, so I'm pretty much just gonna do,
I think everything in what I think you need to talk about, I think can be postponed, is that not correct?
the property?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay. Because Jared's not here, I worry about y'all not getting information.
We'll make sure we catch up, Jared.
Okay.
We need to have it tonight.
Alright, so that's why I wanted to ask that question.
Way to get our hopes up.
I tried. I tried.
I know, just a tease.
I would accept the motion to temporarily recess the council meeting and convene in a closed session.
So moved.
You have to read the whole.
I will make a motion to temporarily recess the city council meeting to convene in a closed session for the purpose to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code annotated 52-4-205.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Nicole?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Thank you, appreciate it.
Gordon?